Some families polish their silver. Tyler's family polishes their image. On paper they look perfect. Glossy holiday photos, polite smiles, curated lives that sparkle just enough to blind you from the truth. But under that shine, there is a different story. Tonight you will hear it. A quiet builder who kept his wins to himself. A sister who lives for the spotlight. A charming stranger who speaks fluent confidence. And a dinner where the mask finally slipped. I am Rachel, and this is the night a picture. Perfect family learned that appearances do not protect you from consequences. If you have ever sat at a table where you were the joke and everyone pretended it was love, this one is going to feel familiar. Let's begin with Tyler. He never chased applause, he built in silence. While his family planned photo ops, he wrote code. While they practiced small talk, he chased ideas. He never bragged, never posted numbers, never corrected their assumptions. He let them keep their script even when it stopped fitting. My name is Tyler, I am 26. If I had one sentence for my family, it would be this. Image beats integrity every time. They are not cruel. They are careful. Everything has to look right. Smiles that never crack. Statements that play well in a church hallway. Cards that arrive on time with the right calligraphy. Scratch the surface and you get what I grew up in. Ego, judgment, a scoreboard no one admits they are keeping. I was the quiet one who loved building things, websites at 13, Python at 15, dev tools that made my life easier. I went to college on a full ride for computer science and kept my mouth shut about the side project I was growing. I wanted privacy. I liked moving under the radar. After graduation, the project turned into something real. A licensing deal, a modest exit, good investments, nothing flashy, no yacht fantasies, just freedom. Enough that I could pick my clients, pay cash for a small house, and disappear for a week if I needed to think. My family did not notice, or maybe they chose not to. My mom would pat my arm and tell me my calling would show up soon. She said that after I bought my house, my dad mostly hovered at the edges and nodded at whatever sounded respectable. My sister Belle, that was a different planet, beauty pageants, communications degree. A quick wedding at 23, a public crash at 28. She moved back in with our parents last year and started the rebrand. New hair, new wardrobe, new captions, and eventually new boyfriend. His name was Brad, and of course it was. Tall, tan, cleaned up just right. A beard that looked like it had its own barber. He threw out phrases like alpha energy and meant them. My parents fell in love overnight. My mom used her wine voice. He is very successful in finance. My dad said Brad carries himself well. That is code in our house for looks good in pictures. I met Brad once at my parents' place. He went with a casual "yo man, what's up?" and a dominant handshake. I gave him nothing, just enough politeness to keep the peace. Something about him felt rehearsed. He watched the room like it owed him something, and Belle, she looked at him like he was a trophy, not love. Positioning, I figured it would pass, a phase. She likes to try on lives like outfits. Then came the text from my mom. Family dinner Sunday at 6. Be there. No emoji, no please. A commandment I nearly skipped. The message pressed on a bruise I know too well. Show up, smile, do your part. Let them feel like we are perfect. I went anyway, 10 minutes late. Petty maybe, but it helped me breathe. My mom opened the door with perfect lipstick and a face that said I was already wrong. We were about to start, Tyler. No hello, no hug. Inside, the table was staged like a catalog. Crystal glasses, cloth napkins, her roast that always turns out dry, Dad at the head with scotch, Belle glowing. Brad leaning back like he owned the house. Nice of you to finally show up. He said, punchable grin. I told him there was traffic. He snorted like the town had one road and I had invented a lie. My mom pointed me to my seat like she was pushing the last actor on stage. We did the opening small talk. Weather, work, a cousin I barely remember. I thought I could skate through. Then Brad warmed up. He told some story about a coworker who tried a side hustle. Wanted to be the next Zuckerberg. Made $5 and started calling himself an entrepreneur. He laughed hard, everyone followed. My mom threw her head back. Belle dabbed her eyes like she needed a camera to find her. Brad looked straight at me. You ever try anything like that, Tyler? You're into tech, right? I shrugged. He smirked. You should meet a buddy of mine, teaches coding to high schoolers. Solid gig for folks who can't break into real development. Belle snorted. My mom said nothing. I smiled without warmth. Sounds like a great fallback for someone like you. He twitched, then doubled down. I'm good, man. I'm in finance, real-world stuff. My dad chuckled and tossed in a line about needing more of that around here. That one stung. I had automated half his budget last year and saved him from overdraft fees. But Brad had a suit and a tone. Apparently that is what counts. I shut up and ate the dry roast. I watched. It is what I do when the ground starts to move. I already knew something about him. A few days earlier, a hunch made me search his name. What I found did not match the pitch. The job titles seemed inflated. The achievements were vague. The timeline had gaps you could drive a truck through. The more I scrolled, the more I felt the shape of a story he would not want told. I did not plan to say anything, yet. We drifted through dinner like people in a play. Brad led. My parents reacted. Belle performed. I waited. After dessert, when wine had softened the edges and my mom was relaxing into the presentation, Brad leaned back, patted his stomach, and started another monologue. Our firm's launching a new algorithmic fund next quarter, he said, cutting edge, a lot of back, and I've had to oversee. He said quantitative models and predictive analytics like he had just discovered both words. He chuckled at his own line. I twirled my fork and asked what back and meant to him. He rolled straight through. Finance nerd stuff, you know. Then he took aim. Ever think about getting into real business? Or is the dream still coding in pajamas with Red Bull at 2 in the morning? Belle laughed too loud. My mom put on the tight smile she uses to control rooms. Tyler, we talked about this. She said, you have to let people tease. It is how we connect. I asked, calm, tease or belittle. She did not blink. Don't make a scene. There it was, the family creed. Do not embarrass us. Do not break the picture. I leaned back and said I did not know being mocked was a bonding exercise. Brad gave me the calm predator look. All in good fun. No need to get defensive. My dad tried to reset the table. He asked what I was working on. I kept it vague. A few projects. Brad pushed again. What kind of projects, or is that top secret? My mom sighed like I was a problem to be solved. Tyler, please, you're making things awkward. The heat rose in my chest, not anger, familiar weather, the same feeling I had when Belle caused chaos and I got told to be the bigger person. The same feeling I had when I won a scholarship and my mom told me I would regret leaving home. I swallowed it. Sure, I said, let's not make things awkward. The conversation slid back to vacations and neighbors. I let the noise pass over me, but the storm was already forming, and when Brad mentioned a certain tech company by name, the air in that room changed. He was about to brag himself right into the one place he did not want to be, because Tyler knew that name, he knew the code, he knew the contract, and he knew exactly who really owned it. Dessert plates had been cleared. My mom pretended the store-bought cheesecake was homemade again. The mood was warm and smug, like everyone was satisfied with the little family performance. Then Brad opened his mouth and everything shifted. He was scrolling through Belle's phone, showing her something on Instagram, when he casually tossed out, "Oh, that reminds me. I gave a talk last week on fintech disruption." He waited a beat so everyone could digest the impressive sounding phrase. My parents leaned in. Belle glowed. Brad continued, "My team's been collaborating with this new predictive analytics firm. Startup Stream or something like that. Small dev company. Most people haven't heard of them, but they've got promising tech. We'll probably buy them out soon." I set my glass down. Slow, controlled, Startup Stream. I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "Yeah," he said, grinning like he'd just revealed insider information. "You know them." "A bit," I replied. "What exactly do you do in that process?" Brad straightened up, eager to perform. "I'm the front-facing guy. I handle the conversations, make sure the numbers make sense. The execs don't usually deal with the code people. It's too technical." "The code people," I repeated without emotion. Right, he said, completely missing the weight of my stare. Smart guys, for sure, but they're not cut out for the big table. He tapped the dining table with his knuckle like it was symbolic. This, he said, is a whole different level. His words echoed. Big table? He really believed he was sitting at one. I didn't speak right away. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. My mom reacted instantly, her voice sharp, defensive, ready to protect the image. Tyler, what are you doing? I ignored the warning in her tone. I scrolled through my email, found what I needed, and held the screen up. Startup stream. I repeated. That tiny dev company your firm is talking about buying. Interesting choice of words. Brad raised his chin. Yeah, why? Because, I said, I own it. A silence hit the room so hard it felt physical. My mom blinked like her brain had frozen mid-update. My dad lowered his glass. Belle's smile vanished. And Brad, his confident expression cracked, confusion flashing into something that looked a lot like fear. What? My mom finally managed. I stood. Not loud, not dramatic, just grounding myself. Startup Stream is my company. I built it. I licensed the core tech to 3 hedge funds last year. One of them is the firm you work for, Brad. I've met with your department heads. Not once did I see your name. Brad's jaw tightened. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Belle looked like she'd just watched lightning strike the dining table. My dad was upright now, fully alert. I didn't bring it up. I continued because I knew none of you would believe me. It would just be another moment you'd treat like a cute little hobby. I looked at my mom. You decided what I was before I ever had a chance to show you. Brad shoved his chair back and stood too, trying to recover. Look, man, I didn't know. Okay, you didn't say anything. Exactly, I replied. If you had known, half your jokes tonight would have died in your throat, and you know it. He glanced at Belle for backup. She stared at her lap, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. I scanned the room one last time. There's a kind of silence, I said, that hits when the version of someone you built in your head falls apart. I get it. It's a lot. Then I dropped the final line that shattered the little world they built. I'm selling Startup Stream. The deal closes Friday. My mom gasped. You're what? It's been in the works for months, I said. The paperwork was signed last week. Belle whispered like, selling for how much? I looked at her. Not mean, not proud, just firm enough. Brad made a strangled sound. Who's buying? I met his eyes. Not your firm, if that's what you were hoping. His face drained. Everyone sat frozen like mannequins caught mid-scene. I didn't wait for dessert, pleasantries, or the usual guilt trip. I simply grabbed my jacket and walked out. No dramatic exit, no door slam, just, done. That was the night, the picture. Perfect dinner cracked like glass, but victory doesn't always feel like a celebration. Sometimes it feels like exhaustion, like years of swallowed words finally catching air. Let me be clear, this wasn't arrogance. Tyler didn't walk out to show off. He walked out because for the first time, he didn't shrink to make others comfortable. I barely slept that night. People think standing up for yourself is the big release. But after you spend years folding yourself small, the aftermath hits harder than you expect. My room was quiet. Too quiet, and silence, when it isn't peaceful, gets loud. The following days, nothing. No calls, no "can we talk?" From my mom, no angry paragraphs, no fake peace offerings, just silence, and weirdly, that hurt more than the yelling I expected. You grow up thinking if you ever disappeared, family would come banging at your door. Turns out, some only knock when they need a prop for their image. The quiet wasn't comfortable, it was hollow, like my phone had died and so had the world around it. I focused on the sale instead. Endless paperwork. Meetings, lawyers, selling your own company is like deconstructing your identity piece by piece, but it kept my mind occupied. Friday came at 10:07 a.m. The final confirmation hit my inbox. It was official. My bank account now had a number that didn't feel real. Not billionaire money, not fantasy money, but freedom, real freedom. You'd think I would celebrate, pop champagne, do a victory lap. Instead, I closed the laptop, grabbed my jacket, and walked. I found myself at the little coffee shop I worked in during college. Same burnt espresso. Same wobbling table by the window. I sat there for an hour watching life outside and wondered what came next. That's when Belle texted, "Hey, you around?" I stared at it, thought about ignoring it, but curiosity won. I replied, "Yeah." She sent an address, not our parents' house, her apartment, the one she was staying in after the divorce. I finished my coffee and headed over. Belle opened the door wearing sweats, hair tied up, no makeup, no performance, just Belle, the human version, not the presentation version. "You want to come in?" she asked quietly. I stepped inside, boxes half unpacked, a wine glass on the counter, the kind of space that still feels temporary. We sat on her couch. She took a breath. "I didn't know," she said, "about the company, about any of it." I stayed quiet. "Brad, well, you saw him. I thought he was solid, confident. After the divorce, I wanted someone who looked like stability." I raised an eyebrow. "So you brought him to dinner as a display piece?" Her cheeks flushed. "I didn't expect him to act that way, and I definitely didn't expect you to do what you did." I nodded. "I didn't plan on it. He kept pushing, and no one stopped him." Belle's eyes softened. "That's how we are, isn't it? We keep up the show. We don't question anything as long as it looks good." "Yeah," I said, "and the ship has been sinking for years." She took a shaky breath. "Mom is losing it, not about Brad, about everything. She called yesterday crying, saying she failed you." I almost laughed. "Now she sees it." "She doesn't know how to say sorry," Belle admitted. "She thinks if she ignores something long enough, everyone resets to normal." I nodded. "That sounds familiar." Belle looked down. "I'm not asking you to forgive her or us, but maybe talk to her. She's not sleeping. Dad told Uncle Ray that you embarrassed the family." That hit like a punch, but not because it hurt, because it confirmed everything I already knew. I forced a smile. "Yeah. That checks out." We talked for a while. This time it wasn't a performance. She apologized. Not for the show, not for the expectations, but for not seeing me, really seeing me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a tiny shift. Not healing yet, just honesty. I didn't promise her anything. I didn't send a follow-up message. Instead, I booked a 2-week trip. No work, no laptop, just space. He didn't run. He reset. And sometimes stepping away is the only way to hear your own voice again. That trip saved me in ways I didn't know I needed. 2 weeks by the coast in a small cabin with no expectations, no audience, no one to impress or disappoint. I hiked in the mornings, cooked simple meals, read books I'd been meaning to read since college. At night, I sat outside and listened to the wind roll past the trees. No noise, no judgment, just space. Some people heal loudly. I needed the quiet kind, the kind where no one is watching. Piece by piece, I started to feel like a real person again. Not a character in my family's movie. Not the disappointment they politely tolerated. Just me, and for once, that felt enough. When I came back home, I wasn't magically fixed. But I was clearer, lighter, ready to live by my own script, not theirs. Waiting for me at my door was an envelope. No return address. Inside, a wedding invitation. Belle and Brad. 2 months from now. There was a handwritten note from my mom tucked inside. "We hope you'll come. Family is everything." Let's not let one dinner ruin that. I read that line over and over. Let's not let one dinner ruin that. One dinner. As if that night was a tiny inconvenience. As if years of being dismissed could be swept into a drawer labeled family moments and forgotten. My first reaction wasn't anger. It was clarity, cold, sharp clarity. If family was everything, maybe they should have acted like it before sending me a calendar invite to keep up appearances. I sat at my kitchen counter, staring at the invitation. I realized something that made me smile. Not smug, just knowing. They wanted me there. Needed me there, not because they missed me, but because the picture without me didn't look complete. A missing son raises questions, and questions threaten the image. This time I had leverage, and I wasn't planning to show up as their background character ever again. The next morning I made coffee, sat down, and outlined a plan. Not revenge, not a takedown, just truth, but truth delivered with precision. First, I needed information. I didn't trust Brad. There was something slippery about him, and not just socially. The way he spoke about his job at dinner didn't match the reality I'd seen online, and the way he practically drooled over the idea of acquiring startup Stream made my instincts spark. I opened my laptop and dug deeper into Brad's digital footprint. LinkedIn, social media, company profiles, articles, but his online life was curated. Too curated, clean, polished, controlled, like he had scrubbed anything that could break the illusion. I had seen this type of profile before. People who build a brand instead of a career. This wasn't enough. I needed someone who could look beneath the surface. So I called an old contact, Ethan, cybersecurity consultant, sharp, discreet, owed me a favor from a project we had worked on 2 years earlier. When he picked up, he sounded surprised. "Tyler, thought you fell off a cliff. Just needed air." I said, "I need a background check." Quietly, "A background check on who? The president?" He joked, "A finance bro." I said. He laughed. "Say no more. Send me what you've got." 2 days later, he emailed a folder. It wasn't explosive, but it was revealing. Brad had jumped companies like stepping stones, never more than 6 or 7 months in one place, always leaving before performance cycles hit. His titles sounded impressive at first glance, but digging deeper showed they were inflated or vague advisory roles. He wasn't in strategy or analytics. He was in sales, nothing criminal, but the pattern smelled wrong. Someone trying to climb high enough to look successful, but not long enough to be exposed. The second report was worse. He had a trail of poor investments, sketchy crypto ventures, failed real estate flips, consulting, roles with no clear description or outcome. He wasn't broke, but he wasn't stable either. His lifestyle cost more than his income justified. A man like that marrying into a family obsessed with appearances. Perfect match for his needs. I stored the info. I wasn't striking yet. Observation first, action later. Next, I needed someone I trusted. Someone who knew the family dynamic and wouldn't get distracted by the shiny surface. That person was Ava. Ava wasn't just anyone in Tyler's life. They shared history, timing, and the kind of honesty you rarely get twice. She had seen the family's pattern before and recognized the script long before others did. Ava and I had dated for a bit years ago, back during startup Stream's early grind phase. We parted on good terms. Wrong timing, not wrong person. We stayed friends. She was one of the few people who saw through my family's show first, feel later, lifestyle, so I messaged her. She replied in 10 seconds flat. "Coffee, tomorrow, same place." The next day, she walked into the cafe with the same sharp confidence I remembered. She sat, crossed her arms and said, "Okay, start from the dinner." I told her everything. She didn't interrupt, didn't gasp, just listened with that focused Ava stare. When I finished, she whistled. "Your sister really dragged a wolf into the house and dressed him in a tux." "I don't know if he's a wolf," I said. "He's definitely not what he sells himself as." "What's your plan?" she asked. "Not a blow-up." I said, "Not yet. I just want truth. No smoke. No masks." She smirked. "You want a clean takedown, surgical? No blood on you. I want Belle safe." I corrected, "And I'm not letting Brad use my family as a stepping stone." Ava tapped her fingers. "Then here's what we do. You RSVP yes. You show up, smile for pictures. Blend in, we stay on the inside." Quietly. "You think I should go?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "If you don't show up, they'll rewrite the story without you. If you go, you control the narrative." She was right. That night, I RSVP'd, attending +1. I didn't get a response, but I knew they saw it. From that moment, the energy shifted. Tyler wasn't walking into that wedding as the quiet, overlooked sibling anymore. He was walking in with information. Clarity and someone in his corner. This wasn't revenge, not yet. This was preparation. With 2 months until the wedding, Ava and I dug deeper. We scanned Brad's online behavior, tracked inconsistencies in his posts, cross-referenced dates, tagged his casual lies. We paid attention to the little things people ignore when they're blinded by charm. One night, around 1 a.m., I got a message from Ava, found something. She sent a link to a buried finance forum, hard to find unless you know how to look. In it, a user with a username suspiciously similar to Brad's old gamer tag was promoting a crypto investment system. The language was polished, persuasive, and illegal enough to smell like trouble. The replies told the story. People claiming they never got their returns, excuses from the poster, then silence, not proof, but smoke. I forwarded it to Ethan. 2 days later, he confirmed it. Brad had quietly registered a shell company 6 months earlier and had been collecting investments under vague promises that changed everything. This wasn't about pride anymore. It wasn't about proving myself to my family. This was about protecting them, especially Belle. The wedding was no longer just a family event. It was the stage where truth would meet illusion, and Tyler wasn't going in to ruin a celebration. He was going in to stop a disaster. Because the closer the wedding got, the more one thing became clear. Brad wasn't just a bad fit for the family. He was a ticking bomb. And the wedding day crept closer. Tyler wasn't operating on anger anymore. He was operating on clarity. He'd spent years letting his family write the script. This time, he was holding the pen. And while everyone else was choosing floral centerpieces and menu options, Tyler was preparing for something entirely different. The truth, the weeks leading up to the wedding felt strangely calm. On the surface, everything in the family group chat that I was barely included in seemed cheerful. Dress fittings, rehearsal dinner photos, Belle's Instagram countdowns. She was locked into the performance. Show must go on. Meanwhile, Ava and I were doing quiet work. We cross-referenced Brad's online claims, found inconsistencies in his job history, and matched timelines with his supposed consulting projects. It was like pulling thread from a sweater. The more we tugged, the faster the whole thing loosened. We noticed how Brad curated his online image. Every photo was intentional. Every caption had a strategy. He only posted with people who looked successful. He didn't build connections. He collected optics. One evening, Ava and I sat on my couch surrounded by our notes like detectives on a case. He's not just pretending to be successful, Ava said. He's auditioning for it. And my family cast him. I muttered. He sees Belle as a ladder, she added. Image-obsessed family. Perfect springboard. I hated how right she was. 2 weeks before the wedding, Ethan sent me another update. Brad had been allegedly funneling money into that shell company from personal contacts, including a coworker's brother and 2 college friends. It wasn't a full-scale Ponzi scheme, but it was pointed in that direction, the kind that starts small enough to ignore until it explodes. I stared at the screen, imagining Belle's future if this went unchecked. Lawsuits, debt, public humiliation she'd never recover from, and worst of all, parents who would blame her for choosing the wrong man while never admitting they clapped for him the whole time. This wasn't about making a scene. This was about preventing a tragedy. Here's the thing about people like Brad. They don't need love. They need belief. As long as people believe in their crafted image, they thrive. Strip the illusion away and they crumble. Tyler wasn't planning a dramatic takedown. Not yet. He was planning a precise one. A few days before the wedding, I decided to test the waters. I invited Belle to lunch. Neutral space. I wanted to see where her head was. She arrived dressed up like she was being photographed, hair done, full makeup, coordinated outfit. It was lunch, not Vogue, but old habits die hard. We ordered salads, and for the first 10 minutes, she talked about flower arrangements and playlist choices. I let her get it out. Then I asked, "Are you happy?" She froze, just for a second, but I caught it, of course. She said too quickly, "Why wouldn't I be? That's what I'm asking." I replied, "Why does it sound rehearsed?" She tensed. "Tyler, please don't start. I know you don't like Brad, but I don't dislike him." I said, "I just don't trust him." She rolled her eyes. "You never trust anyone I date." "That's not true," I said, "but you don't realize how much you adjust yourself to fit someone else's image." She looked offended. "Excuse me?" "Belle, you change your personality based on who you're dating. Your hair, your interests, your Instagram. You turn into whoever they need you to be." Her jaw clenched. "You think I don't know who I am?" "I think you know who you want people to think you are," I said gently, "but that's not the same thing." The silence between us was sharp. She swallowed. "Mom said you might pull something at the wedding." I let out a humorless laugh. "That sounds like her." "Did she tell you why she thinks that?" "She just said you've been distant and unpredictable." I nodded slowly. "Belle, if I wanted to embarrass the family, I could have done it a long time ago. If I wanted to make a scene, I would have done it at that dinner." "I'm not trying to blow up your wedding." "Then what are you doing?" She whispered. "I'm trying to keep you safe," I said. even if you don't see the danger yet." Her eyes softened, just a little, but she wasn't ready. Not then. She wasn't ready to hear the truth about the man she decided was her fresh start. We finished lunch in careful silence. When we stood to leave, she hugged me briefly, like she wanted to say something more but didn't have the courage or clarity yet. I walked out knowing one thing: I couldn't count on Belle being ready to accept the truth before the wedding, so the truth would have to speak for itself the night before the wedding. Tyler and Ava met one last time, not to rehearse a scene, but to prepare for every possible outcome, because once the wedding began, there would be no second chances. Ava and I sat at my dining table with a simple, organized plan. 3 possible routes. Route A: Brad confesses or shows cracked before the ceremony. Route B: reveal the truth quietly to Belle before vows, only if she's receptive. Route C: if Brad continues the performance and no one listens, then reveal publicly, with evidence. No drama, no yelling, just facts. Before she left, Ava looked at me and said, "Whatever happens, tomorrow we do this clean. You don't have to destroy him. You just have to unmask him." She was right. After she walked out, I sat alone in the quiet. I pictured the wedding, the day, the speeches, the smiles, the carefully chosen photos planned for social media, and I pictured the collapse that would follow if no one intervened. I wasn't nervous for myself, I was nervous for Belle, because sometimes the truth doesn't break the people who lied. It breaks the people who believed them. The morning of the wedding didn't arrive softly. It hit like the opening scene of a play everyone was rehearsing for. But only one person knew the script was about to change, and what Tyler didn't know then was this: you can plan for the truth, you can prepare for the truth, but you can't control what happens once the truth is spoken. The wedding day arrived dressed in perfection. The kind of event where people whisper fairy tale before they've even found their seats. The sun was warm but gentle, the sky was filter blue, and every detail looked like it came straight from a bridal magazine. But underneath that beauty, something else was humming. Not excitement, not joy, tension, the kind you can feel even if no one says a word. And Tyler, he wasn't showing up as the overlooked, quiet brother this time. He was walking into a stage built for illusion, carrying the one thing that could break it. I didn't drive my own car. I rented something clean, sharp, and low key, matte charcoal, professional. I didn't want flashy. I wanted controlled. Ava stepped out of the passenger side as if she'd been waiting her whole life for a cue that dramatic. Deep green dress, confident posture, calm expression. Heads turned before we reached the entrance, and I'm not exaggerating. My mother's friends froze mid-sentence like someone hit a pause button on their gossip. Ava leaned in and whispered, "Smile," enough to confuse them. I did. It worked. The venue was almost too perfect. White orchids wrapped around archways, gold accents everywhere, tables labeled with cursive names instead of numbers, a jazz trio playing near the garden, the kind of place chosen for Instagram moments, not memories. I scanned the crowd before stepping further in. Relatives I hadn't seen in years. Church friends my mom adored because they made her look important. Neighbors who loved to pop in for gossip disguised as concern. But the star of the pre-ceremony wasn't the bride, it was Brad. He moved through the garden like a politician, greeting, laughing, complimenting, shaking hands with both palms like he was sealing deals. If you didn't know him, you'd think, this guy has it all. If you did know better, you'd see the cracks in his eyes, the ones he hoped no one could read. My mother hovered behind him with the wedding planner, whispering instructions, adjusting flower placements, rehearsing her smile. She wasn't enjoying the moment. She was managing it. She saw this wedding as a public statement. Look how well we raised our children. I could practically see the headline she wanted floating over her head. Then I saw Belle. She stood inside a circle of bridesmaids, stunning in an ivory lace gown. Her hair was perfect, her makeup flawless, but her smile, it wasn't joy. It was fixed, polished, like a pageant smile she'd been trained to hold for the camera, and her eyes, if you looked closely, were tight around the edges, not nerves, restraint. Ava followed my gaze and murmured, "She looks like she's starring in a movie she didn't write." That hit harder than I expected. We took our seats for the ceremony, second row, right behind immediate family. close enough to see everything. My parents noticed us. My dad nodded stiffly like he wasn't sure how to greet me in public anymore. My mom offered a stiff smile that didn't reach her eyes. "No, I'm glad you're here." Just the smile required for the photos. The ceremony began right at 4 p.m., precisely timed for golden hour pictures. Flowers framed the aisle, the sunlight caught on the bride's veil, and the photographer bent in every possible angle to make it all look cinematic. Brad stood at the altar looking like a catalog model. Polished, confident, picture Eddie. If charm could be bottled, he smelled like it. Belle walked down the aisle with a smile that made everyone sigh, but I watched her eyes, not her dress. She didn't look at Brad with love. She looked at him with determination, like she was willing herself to believe this was right. The vows were overly poetic, like they'd been edited by Pinterest boards and possibly a few AI prompts. People teared up. My mom dabbed her eyes dramatically. My dad stiffened his back with pride. The guests adored it. But a wedding built for applause is rarely built for real life. There were moments when Brad slipped small hints of control into his vows. "I'll guide us. I'll lead our future. I'll take care of the decisions." And each time, Belle's fingers tightened around her bouquet. Most people didn't notice. Ava did. I did. The ceremony wrapped up, vows finished, rings exchanged, kiss delivered right on cue. Guests clapped, some even cheered. And for a moment, if you didn't know anything else, you would think it was beautiful. But I wasn't looking at the picture. I was looking at the truth beneath it. If the ceremony was the image the family wanted the world to see, the reception was the stage where reality would finally collide with it. The toasts, the dancing, the spotlight moments, and somewhere inside that carefully planned timeline, Tyler would have to decide when and how to reveal what he knew. Because the goal wasn't humiliation. It was protection. But the thing about truth is, once you set it loose, it doesn't land gently. It hits where it needs to and not always where you expect. The reception was held in a grand hall attached to the garden. White drapery hanging from the ceiling, chandeliers glowing like crystals, personalized menus with Belle and Brad's initials monogrammed on top. Every table had centerpieces elegant enough to feed a small family for a week. We mingled before dinner. Ava and I kept low profile but observant. I watched Brad make sales, pitch, style conversations with wedding guests. Not about love, not about family, about business leads. Contacts, opportunities, he was harvesting. At one point, I heard him telling Belle's bridesmaid's boyfriend, "We should talk investments sometime. I've got something big launching soon." There it was, the switch from groom to salesman, and he wasn't waiting long to flip it. Dinner was served. My mom gave a heartfelt toast about love, resilience, and new beginnings. My dad followed with a clumsy but supportive speech about welcoming Brad into the family. Guests laughed, clapped, clinked glasses. Cameras flashed. For everyone else, this was the happiest chapter. For me, the countdown had begun. As dessert plates were placed in front of guests, chocolate torte with edible gold flakes like the extravagance made it taste richer. I took breath. Ava leaned toward me. "If you call it off, I won't judge you." I shook my head. This isn't about revenge. Belle needs the truth before it costs her everything. Then time it right, she said, "when the room is listening." I knew exactly when that moment would be, because weddings have one point where the room falls silent and expects words worth remembering. It was almost time for speeches, and this time the family wouldn't control the narrative. The next few minutes would change everything, because once Tyler stood up to speak, not as the quiet brother but as the truth keeper, nothing at that wedding would ever look the same again. There's a moment at every wedding when the room gives its full attention to one voice. No clinking silverware, no side conversations, just focus. For most couples, that moment is the best part of the night. For this one, it would be the turning point. The moment the curtain finally lifted. Dessert had been served, wine had softened the atmosphere, and guests were loosened up enough to laugh at anything. The perfect setup for a speech. Any speech. The MC tapped the mic and announced it was time for a few words from family and friends. My mom visibly relaxed, like she believed she had navigated the day without a single crack in the image. Dad sat taller. Belle smiled politely. Brad wore the satisfied grin of a man who believed he had already won. That's when I stood. I didn't rush. I tapped a spoon against my glass once. Clear, calm, heads turned, conversations paused. The MC looked confused but stepped aside. Brad's grin tightened. My mom's spine stiffened. Ava's hand slid onto my arm for half a second. Not to stop me, just to steady me. I nodded once. I walked up to the mic. I'll keep this short. I began. I want to start by saying, Belle, you look incredible today. Anyone can see how much heart you put into this. Belle blinked, caught off guard. That wasn't the opening she expected. You've always had this strength about you. I continued. Even when people labeled you things you weren't. You always found a way to shine. Some guests nodded, smiling warmly at her. Then I turned slightly toward Brad. I wasn't sure about you at first, but over the past few weeks I've learned a lot. Enough to really understand who you are. His shoulders locked, his eyes sharpened, the air shifted. Guests sensed something, but didn't know where it was headed yet. I pulled my phone from my pocket and held it up. Calm, not dramatic. I wanted to understand the man marrying my sister. So I did what any protective family member would do. I looked into your background, your work history, your side ventures. A ripple went through the room. Brad raised a hand, forcing a laugh. Hey man, if this is a joke, it isn't. I said without raising my voice, but thank you for proving my point. His smile faded. I continued, before this wedding, you told everyone you were leading a major acquisition deal with a predictive analytics firm. You bragged about your role. You called developers the code people. You implied you were sitting at the big table. A few guests chuckled awkwardly, thinking this was playful. It wasn't. I pressed a button on my phone, and the projector screen behind me lit up. The same one they had used earlier for a slideshow of Belle and Brad's engagement photos. Now it displayed a PDF labeled Investors Communication Records Credence Coin 2021-2023. Murmurs broke out instantly. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I simply spoke with clarity. Over the last couple of years, Brad has been promoting a crypto investment scheme under a shell company he registered quietly, promising returns, collecting money, and offering nothing in writing that holds up legally. I clicked again. Screenshots appeared, messages from the finance forum, Brad's username, claims from users saying they never got their money back. A short silent video clip loaded, the pitch recording, Brad sitting at a desk, confidently promising guaranteed returns to his investor group. His voice filled the speakers, gasps spread across the room. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Brad lunged forward, "Turn that off." I held up my hand calmly. I already turned it into the SEC. This is just so everyone understands the truth before decisions get made today. My parents froze. My mom's face lost all color. My dad looked like the floor had tilted under him. Belle stood from her seat, bouquet trembling in her hand. Tyler. What is this? It's what I tried to warn you about. I said, softer now. He's not who he says he is. You deserve to know before this goes any further. Brad tried to regain control, voice strained. This is ridiculous. You're jealous. I sold startup stream. I said, cutting in, legally, cleanly. I met with the actual executives at your firm, Brad. You weren't part of those discussions. You weren't at the table. You weren't even in the building. The room fell dead silent again. I shifted my focus from Brad to the guest, especially the family members who had known me all my life but never really seen me. You all thought I was the quiet one, the background character, the one who never quite made it, and that was fine. I never needed applause. But what I won't do is watch my sister step into a future built on lies. My voice didn't shake because for the first time in my life, I wasn't talking to gain approval. I was talking because it needed to be said. I turned back to Belle. I'm not doing this to ruin your wedding. I'm doing this so you don't wake up one day wondering why no one told you the truth when it could still help you. Her eyes glossed with tears, not dramatic ones, real ones. I stepped away from the mic. No dramatic walk off, no slam, just the truth, placed gently but firmly where everyone could see it. Ava was already standing when I got back to her. She whispered, "You did it clean." Before we could leave, my mom shot up from her seat. "Tyler, we need to talk, right now." I shook my head. "You only listen when it's convenient." Belle's voice cracked behind her. "Tyler, why now?" I turned back to her. "Because I love you enough not to stay quiet." Then I nodded to Ava, and we walked out. No yelling, no chaos. Just a quiet exit that left them sitting in the reality they never wanted to face. And although the room stayed frozen long after Tyler left, the fallout didn't wait. The truth didn't need volume to explode. It only needed daylight. What came next would shake the family in ways even Tyler didn't predict. Truth doesn't wrap itself neatly. It doesn't pause to let everyone gather their thoughts. It hits, then leaves everyone to confront the pieces. When Tyler walked out of that reception hall, he expected anger, chaos, denial. What he didn't expect was what came next. Ava and I didn't say anything until we reached the car. The music from inside was muffled, like a party underwater. She finally asked, "Do you feel better?" I stood still for a second, breathing in the cold air. The night felt clearer than it had in years. "I feel free," I said. We got in the car and drove away. No dramatic music, no victory soundtrack, just silence. The kind that feels clean. Over the next few days, things unraveled fast. I didn't hear from my parents, not a single call. No, how could you? Or come fix this, or even the classic guilt. Texts, nothing. The silence made one thing clear. They weren't ready to face what happened unless they could rewrite it first. But I did hear about the fallout, not from them. From people who weren't supposed to talk but did. Apparently, within 48 hours, Brad was contacted by the SEC. Turns out, they'd already had scraps of complaints and questionable activity linked to his name. What I submitted filled in the gaps. 3 days later, he was questioned formally. Belle filed for annulment less than a month after the wedding. It wasn't loud. She didn't post a statement. She didn't make excuses. She simply erased him. My parents, well, they hid, not from the public, oh no. They knew how to maintain the show. They hosted gatherings, attended charity events, smiled through it all. But underneath, they shut down emotionally, especially toward me. I disrupted the script, and they didn't know how to function without it. One afternoon, I received a card in the mail. Thick paper, expensive, my mom's taste, of course. Inside, it was blank. No note, no apology, not even a signature, just silence in envelope form. I placed it on table, stared at it for a second, and then tossed it into the trash. Some endings don't deserve ceremony. You'd think that moment would be the end of the story, but endings aren't always explosions. Sometimes they're quiet shifts, doors closing so new ones can open. I didn't go back to my family home, not for holidays, not for family dinner. I needed distance, space to learn who I was without being folded into their version of me. Ava and I stayed close, not romantically, just real. She never treated me like a project or a secret genius. She saw me, that was enough. People expect a dramatic transformation after a moment like that. New cars, new life, travel, flexing success. But I didn't want to prove anything to anyone anymore. I had already spent enough years trying to earn a seat at a table where I was never welcome to sit comfortably. So I built a new one. I started small. Volunteered to mentor young developers with ideas but no guidance. Invested in projects that felt meaningful, not glamorous. I traveled when I wanted, not to escape but to explore. I built friendships built on honesty, not image. As for my family, months passed before anything shifted. One evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Belle. "I know you don't owe me a response. I just wanted to say thank you. I didn't want to see it then, but you saved me from something I would have never escaped on my own." I stared at the message for a long time, then responded, "I'm glad you're okay." No heart emojis, no dramatic reconciliation, just truth, clean and simple. A week later, we met for coffee, no makeup, no cameras, just us. Two siblings who finally started talking like humans, not characters. She told me she was in therapy, that she was working on finding out who she was when no one was watching, and for the first time, we didn't talk as the successful one and the spotlight one. We talked as equals. And what about Tyler's parents? They didn't suddenly transform into emotionally healthy, self-aware people. Life isn't a movie. Growth rarely happens in sync. But people change, slowly, quietly, stubbornly, and sometimes distance becomes the only space where truth can breathe. Months later, my dad reached out, not with excuses, not with justification, just coffee, just us. It wasn't a fix, it wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. And I only said yes because this time I had boundaries. I no longer needed them to validate me. I no longer needed to prove myself. I wasn't the quiet kid at the table anymore. I had my own table now, and anyone who wanted to sit at it had to come as their real self, not the polished version. Tyler didn't win by exposing Brad. He won by choosing truth over performance, by choosing peace over applause, by walking away from the role he was assigned, and writing his own. And that kind of freedom, it doesn't come from money. It comes from finally seeing your worth without needing anyone else to clap for it. Ending a chapter doesn't always look like fireworks or final speeches. Sometimes it looks like choosing yourself quietly, consistently, until the old version of you no longer fits. This last part of Tyler's story isn't about revenge or exposure. It's about what came after the storm, when the dust settled and he finally saw himself clearly. Life after the wedding didn't transform overnight. Healing isn't a montage, it's slow. Some days were light, some days felt heavy, but for the first time the weight I carried was mine, not the expectations my family built on my shoulders. I didn't rush to fix things with my parents. I'd spent too much of my life bending to keep the peace. Now, if there was going to be peace, it had to be real, not a performance for neighbors or extended family. It took a long time for my mom to reach out. When she did, it wasn't with flowers or a speech. It was a text. "I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try." It wasn't perfect, it wasn't polished, it was human, and this time that was enough. We met at a small cafe, no audience, no image. She looked smaller that day. Like life had settled on her differently. She didn't defend the past, she didn't deny what happened, she just said, "I should have seen you." I'm sorry. I didn't forgive everything in that moment. I didn't pretend the past never happened, but I accepted the attempt because it was real, not rehearsed. My dad followed quietly in his own way, a conversation here, a check-in there, not big, not dramatic. Just effort, and I matched the energy, slow, steady, honest. Relationships rebuilt on truth take longer, but they last longer too. Belle, she rebuilt herself piece by piece. It wasn't easy. She had to relearn who she was without applause. But she started therapy, made real friends, took a job that wasn't glamorous but made her feel grounded. She stopped chasing aesthetics and started chasing clarity. Sometimes she texts me memes at 2 a.m. Sometimes we talk about things we were always too guarded to say growing up. And for the first time, we're building a bond that isn't rooted in competition or roles assigned by our parents. And Brad, he became a cautionary tale in the business world. Nothing viral, nothing dramatic. Just slowly exposed through the system he tried to cheat. The type of downfall that doesn't trend online, but ruins credibility forever. He stopped being a threat the moment truth hit daylight. And for me, I stopped hiding my wins to make others comfortable. I stopped shrinking so others could feel taller. I learned that success means nothing if you can't live with yourself at the end of the day. Money didn't fix me. Truth did. And the beautiful thing about truth is, once you live in it, you can't go back to pretending. I chose a life built on peace, purpose, and people who value authenticity over applause. I still keep my circle small, not because I'm guarded, but because I finally learned what real connection looks like. These days, I wake up and don't brace myself for judgment. I cook breakfast without imagining someone rating it. I work because I want to, not because I need to prove I belong at any table. I built a life where I don't need to be invited to one. Tyler didn't win because he exposed Brad. He didn't win because he made a dramatic exit that night. He won because he walked away from the version of himself that only existed to keep others comfortable. He won because he learned that you don't need to set yourself on fire to light up a family portrait. He won because he chose truth, even when it wasn't easy. And that's the part most people miss. You don't need permission to stop performing. You don't need approval to choose yourself. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away and build a life that feels real in your own skin. Not everyone will clap when you do it. But peace doesn't need an audience.